excellent condition. That's what I need to see. When I see that, then I know that this show is live. This show being the NBA strategy show, Monday, November 6th. Massive, massive slate ahead of us. We've got 12 games today, making up for 0 games tomorrow. Make sure you guys get out and vote. Do it a couple times if you need to. You're going to have enough free time for it since there's no basketball. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by Bet365. So much to talk about. Hope you guys had a good weekend. Mine could have been a lot better, but Liverpool was straight ass. I don't want to talk about it. Adam, what's up?
Yeah, mine wasn't great either. Lost at most things that I did. So happy to get back into a new week. Did have a good weekend as far as just like not drinking, not being hungover, and going to sleep early. So I feel better today than I have probably on a Monday morning in a really long time.
Yeah. Well, I did a lot of the same thing. Did you have good weather over the weekend?
I don't know. I didn't go outside. But yeah, it was like 70 degrees yesterday.
Okay. Oh, man. That's good.
It was
good.
very, very cold, like Thursday night, Friday morning. I think it was decent on Friday. It was nice over the weekend.
Okay. Yeah, it was like 75 and sunny yesterday when I went out for the Liverpool match. It was just very nice to be out. Unfortunately, they were dog shit. So I ate my feelings with 2 slices of pepperoni pizza as I walked back to my car and just went about my day. Previous Josh probably would have had like 15 more drinks, but I washed my hands of it, relaxed for the rest of the day. It was nice. It was very nice.
Yeah, I started to go out to watch football yesterday. Hit up a couple people, they couldn't go, and I was just like, yeah, I'll just actually take the whole weekend, not drink, sit at home, watch, lose money on my own instead of in public.
Oh man. You excited for tomorrow?
No, not really.
No.
I just had 3 months off. Like, I don't want a day with nothing to do.
That's a good point. You really did have like quite the extended off time.
Yeah. I've had enough time with myself. I need things to distract me again.
I'm about to run my sim quickly, which I think I just did. So we got a lot to talk about. Do you want to just dive in here? Is chat doing anything crazy?
What'd you say?
So is chat doing anything crazy? You never
No,
know.
I kept looking for. I just opened it. I kept looking for it for the 7th, not realizing today was the 6th.
Oh, yeah. It's so hard to know the date these days.
There's just no reason to.
Yeah, it's yeah, I got nothing else. Let's get into this. Guys, hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. 200 people. We're going to be here for a bit. We got a lot to break down. We're going to start with a team that we don't normally start with, the Golden State Warriors. They are 6.5-point favorites in Detroit, 227 total. For this one, kind of difficult to really dig in. Both teams played yesterday, so they're both on a back-to-back. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we don't see Klay Thompson today. Draymond Green is 10%.
Josh, Steve Kerr said that the starters are going to play.
Yeah.
Or the veterans are going to play.
I bet he did. 10% ownership coming into Draymond Green on DK. It's 13 on FanDuel. His minutes are up a bit. 15% coming into Klay on FanDuel, where Klay's price is broken. He is 5,400 on FanDuel, 6,900 on DraftKings. As I look at Golden State currently, they don't look rosterable as any priority across the board. I have 1% at best.
What'd you say?
1% at best of somebody.
Yeah. Like the only guy getting ownership on DraftKings right now is Draymond, and 6,200, that makes perfect sense. Getting 10% ownership. We have him at 18% to be optimal right now, but he looks fine. It's just always tough to get to a 10-2 Curry, especially on a full slate. None of these salaries look very appealing if everybody is in. If Klay sits, then obviously things start to change. If other people were to sit, then things start to change. But for now, assuming everybody is in, I think Draymond is really the only piece that I see on DraftKings. I think you mentioned Klay having a really weird price on FanDuel coming in at 5,400. He obviously looks good there. Draymond looks good there. But yeah, DraftKings wise, I think it's pretty much just Draymond.
Yeah, I wish I had more to say here. If we lose some guys on this back-to-back, then maybe something opens up here for the Warriors. But it just doesn't, like, if Klay ends up out, I don't really think we're creating anything that you got to go crazy for. Like, does Gary Payton start looking a little bit better? Probably.
Right.
Moses
Moody,
12
game slate too.
Yep, exactly. We're not unlocking the craziness.
Right.
Wish we had more to talk about here, but we don't. So we go to the Pistons.
I mean, you say that, but if we get back for the deeper dive and it's like Curry's not playing, Clay's not playing, Wiggins isn't playing, I would prefer what we have right now.
Certainly. Pistons side of this one's a little different. We don't know the status of the Pistons for today, but that's where it starts to get weird. Alec Burks has missed the last 3 games. Jaden Ivey didn't play yesterday. That changes things up dramatically. Now, I have Ivey in. I don't have Burks in. And that kind of makes things weird because 12% owned Killian Hayes at 4,800 is the only guy in double digits on DraftKings. 17% ownership coming into the 8K Cade Cunningham on FanDuel. I like Hayes if Burks maintains out, just because the minutes are going to be there. If Ivy is out as well, if you feel even better about Hayes, then you get to start looking at someone like Marcus Sasser at 4,400. And then it's just scattered ownership everywhere. 4 to Asar Thompson, 6 to Cade Cunningham, 4 to Beef Stew, nothing to Jalen Duren. There are guys I'd like to pick off from Detroit, but I think the only guy that you can prioritize is Killian Hayes.
Yeah, and even using prioritize there, I think is pretty loose, 11, 12% ownership. But it's a good price tag. If, Burks is out, the minutes kind of just need to be there. If Ivy is out, that's especially true. We got 34 minutes from him yesterday. Not a great point per minute guy. You and I have already talked about his production being down this year as well, which you expect, with him playing alongside Cade in most games, as opposed to only a handful of games last year. 0.72 DraftKings points per minute so far this year for Hayes, but at that price tag, still warrants some ownership given the playing time. If Ivy misses this game, Marcus Sasser at 4,400 starts to look pretty appealing. He was the 6th man yesterday, ended up playing 30 minutes, including garbage time. If you take away a couple minutes of garbage time, you're still looking at like 28 minutes or so. He's only 4,400 on DraftKings, so there would be some appeal there. Thompson rebounding really well. I know you and I talked about that before. He's up to 6,600, so not a great price or anything, but pulling about 4% ownership. Cade at 8,500 is okay. Duren's okay. But Hayes looks like the only guy right now that will actually get relatively high ownership.
Yeah. And if we end up figuring out that Alec Burks is playing today, then you're probably not playing anything from the Pistons.
Yeah.
With any sort of other than last guy in type dudes.
Right. If Burks is out and Ivy's back, do you have any interest in $4,700 Ivy?
Not really. He doesn't seem to be like one of like the darlings for this team right now.
He kind of has been playing similar minutes to Sasser.
We got to remember now that like coaching is different here, and everything that we thought we knew about the Pistons last year doesn't really carry as much weight here. It doesn't seem like Ivy is going to be stepping into anything more than 20 minutes right now.
Right. I mean, in the last game that Ivy played, so 2 games ago against the Pels, there was no Alec Burks. Sasser subbed in before Ivy, ended up playing 23 and a half minutes. Ivy played 21 and a half. So I'm with you as far as, if Ivy is in, then there is some hypothetical path to him playing 28 minutes and doing well, but it shouldn't be anywhere close to the expectation or the assumption, because they've really just kind of split him and Sasser, or even prioritized Sasser over him.
Yeah. We're gonna need Ivy out as well to want to go to Sasser, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like I don't think
not at 4,400
on a 12 gamer is getting it done.
No, not with the price tag up.
Right.
I don't have anybody else here. Just scattered amounts of everybody. Beef Stew's been bad, by the way. 0.72 DraftKings points per minute so far this season. Glad I haven't been playing him.
Yeah. He has been bad. Thompson's been really good. 1.12.
Yeah. San Antonio Spurs, 8-point dogs in Indiana, 238 total. This is the high total for today's slate. We don't know the status of San Antonio. They played yesterday. Devin Vassell, by all accounts, is going to still be out for today. He picked up that injury at the end of last week. Zach Collins is pulling 11% ownership on DraftKings. It's 20 on FanDuel. Everybody else is in single digits here. I certainly think Malachi Branham is a little bit more interesting than 3% owned. 4,100 shooting guard, got the start in their most recent game. Didn't close the second and fourth quarters. They closed with Trey Jones. So Jones is playing like across the standard backup runs and then closing second and fourth quarter. So I think the dynamic between those two guys are interesting. But I think it's pretty clear that Zach Collins is your best option for the Spurs.
Yeah, agreed. Just a pretty favorable price tag at 6,400. Not a bad matchup at all. You mentioned the very high total on this game. Played 33 minutes in regulation last game, 38 including overtime. But just it's going to look good at 6,400. Good point per minute guy. After that, I think it's just a bunch of secondary options. If you get the some Wemby at 8,500 power forward eligible, then by all means at 2%, but that's not going to stand out as a priority. Trey Jones at 5,600. I know I've been getting to a decent amount lately, but at that price tag, it's just really tough on a 12 gamer to want to get there that often, given that he is coming off the bench. The minutes are somewhat risky. Played 27 in regulation last game. Keldon Johnson gives you a ceiling. Started to save a sale because I just always say him with Johnson, but Keldon Johnson gives you a ceiling, but he's correctly priced at 7,300. So I don't really see a lot. If you wanted to roll the dice on $4,100 Branham and hope that he just gets some of those closing minutes, like if he plays well, I think that's reasonable. But the concern is that he's essentially he shared the floor with Trey Jones a bit, but essentially Trey Jones is backing him up, and it's just hard to think that you're going to get many games where Trey Jones plays like 16 minutes or something.
Yeah. I think if you're going to someone here, not Collins, it is Branham, just because he could fall into the extra minutes. Like I think you're projecting him. Well, Jones being 5,600 and Branham being 4,100 makes it distinctly different for me.
Yeah, but Jones is also a better point per minute guy.
Not by a ton. Enough to close that gap, I guess, for sure.
I mean, this year they've been the same, but
yeah, I agree that it's those two dudes because they're the ones that have like the ambiguity in their playing time. But I think it's easier for Branham to see more than Trey Jones if Trey Jones isn't starting. Neither one of these guys are like, oh man, I can't wait to get him. Like I got to 10% of Malachi Branham. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, and since the start of last season, 0.76 DraftKings points per minute for Branham, 1.02 for Jones.
1.02, interesting.
They have been about the same this year, though.
Yeah. I got it at 0.82 Branham this year, 0.94 for Jones so far.
Add More Funds has 0.88 Branham, 0.86 Jones this year.
I'm going to trust me over Add More Funds.
I'll trust Matt.
I'm going to trust me in this one. For these raw totals, I'm going to trust me. That said, yes, Collins 6,400 is the guy that I've got my eye on. Minutes just there. 32, 33 minutes a night, and I don't even have him projected like that. Go Spurs. Let's go to the Pacers side. This one we can actually talk about. They don't have any injury issues, and they're not on a back-to-back. Oh, by the way, I wanted to say this for Wemby. That like 8K-ish power forward / center range is just bonkers. There's so many of these dudes right now, like Lauri Markkanen and Julius Randle, and I'm sure I'm missing a couple more guys that are Porzingis, I think. Like, there's a lot of these 8K power forward center guys. So mixing and matching those guys is probably pretty fun.
Yeah, and I mean, that's partly why you see such low ownership on them individually as well. And then also, you have to remember that that's just going to be a loaded price range across other positions too. And then it's also a price range that kind of gets bumped if you do end up going stars and scrubs. So that's why you see low ownership on these guys. And it's why really the best from an analysis standpoint you can do is like Wemby's a good play at 2% owned. Like for a 2% owned player, he gives you a very high ceiling, but there's also a reason he's 2% owned. And it's just that there's so many guys that look just like him.
Pacer side of this one's a little bit different. As far as we can tell, everybody is in. We have 28% ownership coming into a $6,900 Miles Turner. Let's talk about that one in a second. He's also owned on FanDuel. 21% ownership coming into a $5,300 Bruce Brown on FanDuel. He's only 6% owned on DraftKings. Weird. And then 21 to 25% ownership coming into Tyrese Halliburton across both sites. I want to start with Turner. 6,900, 28% owned. Feels high for the day. Not that I don't like him. He's clearly like a completely reasonable play here, but I don't think he should be like a chalk play.
Yeah, I mean, I think the ownership's a little high for a 12 gamer, just given that there's going to be a bunch of center options. There's going to be a bunch of guys in like a 6 to 8K price range that look pretty good. 27% seems aggressive, but he does look like a really good play here. High scoring game, good matchup. Got in some foul trouble last game, so he didn't play as much as usual. Only played 27 minutes there, but typically you're going to get more than that when he avoids foul trouble and the game is competitive. He's averaging about 1.25 DraftKings points per minute so far this year. So he looks like one of the best center plays. You could certainly argue he's going a little bit over-owned. Right now we have him 19% to be optimal, 27% ownership. So looks like a good play. Just be aware of the ownership. Lineups where you have a lot of other popular plays, probably just find a lower-owned center, and vice versa. If you have in your Wemby lineups, feel free to play Miles Turner by all means.
Yeah. Like I got 19%. He's certainly good, but you are going to have an infinite amount of center options on today's slate. That's the first place you can go to like flip flop two dudes and get a better lineup construction. What do we do with Halliburton? 9,400, 26% owned. And this dude is just a walking assist.
Yeah, I mean, he's so good. I don't really know how you get away from him at this price point.
Yeah.
25% ownership, 16% chance of being optimal. So, again, you're talking about a $9,400 player with a 16% chance of being optimal. That's pretty high considering there's just so many good plays in that range. Normally, you're just not going to see optimal percentages that high on players at that price point, but he's averaging 1.5 DraftKings points per minute so far this season. He is a fantastic fantasy player. The assist numbers are insane. 53% assist percentage so far this year. Like I said, 1.5 fantasy points per minute, 28% usage too, though. It's not like he's just out there picking up assists and then you're hoping he gets to 10 points or something. Like he's shooting the ball too. And just really, really good. Like I think this is somebody that in the not too distant future is just a 10K plus guy. Yeah.
The crazy point for him is like, he's getting all of these assists, 50+% assist rate. It's not like their offense is good. Like he's not dishing that ball out to dudes that are awesome offensively. What happens if he was just like on a more talented like finishing team?
Oh yeah.
Like what's his potential assist rate?
That's what I'm
75.
I have it. Oh, I actually had it on the Mavs. His potential assists per game. He leads the league 19.3 potential assists per game.
Sheesh.
In 32.3 minutes. Chris Paul is second with 17.7 in 29 minutes, which is also insane.
Yeah.
Luka's playing 37.5 minutes per game, getting 17.3 potential assists. I mean, Halliburton is essentially just lapping the field on a per 36 basis, with the exception of Chris Paul.
Yeah. And there's obviously a very big discussion. Like, there's a big difference between Chris Paul and Tyrese Halliburton now.
Right. 21.5 potential assists per 36 minutes for Halliburton.
Can you imagine if you had like Steph and Clay as the guys coming off the screens, if you're diming up, if you're Halliburton diming these guys up?
And the other thing to keep in mind too, like I mentioned, what
TJ McConnell or something.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's just different guys.
And like he's still getting 12.5 assists per game.
Yeah, it's nuts.
But it would be higher. But the other thing too, I mentioned 19.3 potential assists in 32 minutes per game. He's averaged 32 minutes per game so far this season. That's not what you should be expecting him to play on a nightly basis, though.
Nope.
I mean, like competitive game last time out, 36.7 minutes. He's going to get those 35, 36, 37-minute games plenty.
Yeah, I projected him for 34. I think he looks really good here. Hard to not like Indiana. And once again, I feel like I say it every show. I'm okay with the point guard, small forward, $5,600 Bruce Brown at 6% ownership. He's like perfectly reasonable lineup filler to me. I don't want to go crazy for it, but I like the position.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jalen Smith's weirdly getting some ownership and the relatively high optimal percentage right now. I assume that's just something that starts to go away as the day goes on. He's backing up Miles Turner. So, I mean, there is a path to production there. He's not a bad point per minute guy. He is power forward eligible. For the season, you're talking about 1.3 DraftKings points per minute so far. So, like, the path is clearly there. I don't know that I want a lot of a 15% on Jalen Smith, though.
Yeah, there was someone in my process chat this morning talking about how they want to play Jalen Smith today. I was like,
he's fine.
Yeah, it's just there are a lot of those dudes on a 12-gamer.
Right. I mean, the thing that I think you like about Jalen Smith is that, like, he's a very good point per minute guy and he's power forward eligible. So in his normal role, he can still get there, quote unquote, at 4,200. And if you get Turner in foul trouble, like the door opens where Jalen Smith could just win you something. The problem, though, is the ownership that's projected to come in. Like playing those, he could be fine. And if things break my way, he could be really good type guys is a lot more appealing when you're getting him at like 3, 4, 5% owned than, when you're thinking like a large field tournament, it's like, oh, everything broke my way. I still just need to beat the 5,000 people that have Jalen Smith.
Yeah, it's much easier to find an alternative to Jalen Smith than it is to find something like there's going to be a different version of a backup,
right,
on a day like today. And that ownership, without question, will go lower. And without news for Indiana, that ownership will absolutely be lower later today than it is right now.
Agreed.
Every piece of value that starts to open up more takes it away from Jalen Smith.
Yep, agreed.
Anything else for the Pacers?
No.
Dallas Mavericks, 1.5-point dogs in Orlando. Yeah, that's what we're talking about here. I know it does, doesn't it? For the Dallas side of this one, they're on a back-to-back, so we don't have any news. Good thing for Dallas is really, for the most part, every time we play this slate out, that no one's going to roster the Mavericks unless like Luka or Kyrie are out. 3% ownership coming into a 12K Luka is the high mark across both sites. I don't mind Luka at 12K. That's better than 13K. And we're going to have enough salary that you're going to be able to get to him, but I'm pretty much good.
Yeah, nothing from Dallas looks great, assuming that everybody's in. Definitely interested in this injury report, though. Luka played like shit yesterday. There was he went to the locker room at one point, but returned. Dallas writers, I don't remember who, sort of mentioned him just dealing with lower body soreness or whatever. So maybe he sits today, but that 12K price tag is much, much more reasonable than the 13K had been. As value opens up, you do start to get there. But as it is right now, he's still 12K. And even just from teams we've talked about already, there's nothing wrong with a 12K Luka, but 9,400 Halliburton looks so much better.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just getting, it's just so much more efficient at that point. I do love that. And I know what you're saying. I love that you said Luka played like shit yesterday at 1.47 fantasy points per minute, 53.5 in 36 minutes. Like, you're not wrong. That's like a bad game for him.
Yeah. But I know that I was over the field and he finished with 53 DraftKings points. So he played like shit.
Yep. It's wild to see that side. No disagreements, though. And then, I don't want anything else from Dallas.
Agreed.
Yeah. Nothing.
Orlando's actually had a big game yesterday.
Wild. I mean, his minutes are just what a roller coaster.
Yeah.
You want him to be out there for 30 plus, but if he's 5,600, there's just going to be a lot of him.
Yep.
Probably going to make some roster moves here for Orlando because no Wendell Carter Jr., no Gary Harris, no Kevon Harris, no relation. And Markelle Fultz is questionable. The Fultz news is interesting because if he's playing, he's 5,300 and 23% owned on DraftKings. He looks great. And Goga Bitadze played 26 minutes in yesterday's game. He is 38%, or sorry, not yesterday's game, 2 nights ago, 38% owned, $4,700 center. I have 48%. I don't know how, this is the most obvious play of the day at this point.
Yeah. And again, props to DraftKings, 3K last time out, couldn't really see it coming. 4,700 today. He's still underpriced. He's still good, but at least there's some risk now. Last slate, he was $3,000, and it was just as long as he doesn't play 2 4-minute stints, he's giving you some sort of serviceable score at that price. At least now there's some risk there, but still plenty of ownership. 16% chance of being optimal, probably just because of how many good centers there are. At 4,700, you certainly run the risk of, even if Goga goes and gets 28, 30 DraftKings points, you potentially could just be drawing dead if 2 centers go for 55. You're just giving up so many raw points there. So, that's also where the increase in price makes it a little bit riskier. You do see that optimal percentage below the ownership percentage, but still looks like a very, very good value. We have him projected for about 28 DraftKings points at that $4,700 tag. So he looks good. Fultz, if he's in at 5,300, looks very good. Fultz had been a popular play prior to being ruled out of the blue the other night. He's just still really cheap. He'll look good if he's in. Anthony Black got the start in his place last game, ended up playing 30 minutes, including 3 minutes of garbage time. Didn't play at all in the fourth quarter when it was competitive. He is 4,300, not really going to be interested there if Fultz is out. But if Fultz is out, it does open the door for more production from Suggs, Anthony, Banchero, Wagner.
I got the 48% Goga. The Fultz one is the big piece for me. I got 39% Fultz right now. I don't know how to handle him.
So I don't know.
Because if he's out, then everything looks a little bit different here for Orlando. But if he's in, he's like sneaky the second best option.
Yeah. Well, not sneaky, just the second best option.
Well, sneaky the second best option when he's a normal starter and he's also on the team with two guys that are like better than him and Franz and Paulo Banchero. Like nobody thinks about Fultz.
Yeah, it obviously goes back to pricing. And yes, it is kind of strange to just be like hyping up Itadze and Fultz and just like ignoring Wagner and Banchero.
Yeah. And like they should be essentially, I don't want to say they should be ignored, but like they are not guys you're looking to immediately.
Right. They're just the ones where you look at your lineup and you go, oh, cool, my contrarian piece is Franz Wagner. There's a low owned ceiling. Cool.
Yeah.
It could also be like 20 other guys.
Can't get to Mo Wagner, right? Without starting?
I don't think so. I mean, I like the idea of it because he is a good point per minute guy. He does have power forward eligibility, which is really nice. He's basically the same price as Batadze. Like, I like the idea of it. I don't think I'll actually end up doing it.
Stephen Smith. Mo Wagner had 5 fouls in that game. It affected the game in no way to Mo Wagner's rotations. Nothing changed. He was just the straight backup. No one gives a shit about personal fouls for backup centers. That's not like Goga just got every normal rotation.
Yeah. So the only like devil's advocate, I agree with you, but if I was going to play devil's advocate, he did leave the game after his 5th foul at the 5:16 mark of the 4th. Batadze came back in, played 2 minutes, 11 seconds. Then it went to garbage time. There's a non-zero chance that without that 5th foul, Batadze never comes back in that game and Wagner just stays out and closes. Like that could be the intended rotation. But even and I mean, that's important. Like if you knew that was the rotation, like let's say Wagner doesn't pick up that 5th foul and that game didn't blow out and Wagner just played that entire 4th quarter, you'd be looking at this split between Goga and Wagner much differently than we are.
Yeah, for sure. I just don't think that Wagner is going to be the guy that closes.
Right. Neither do I. But I'm saying like there's a chance that was the plan is, Wagner played the entire 4th quarter there. But the fact that he played basically the same rotation as he did in the first half makes me think that he's just playing that rotation.
Same. Yeah, like I think it's wild that they even went to Goga. But I guess they were starting to come back. They went to a center, they went to Goga, and then they cut the lead and immediately went on a run and ended that shit.
Oh, you think it's wild they even took him out with 5 fouls?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you thought it was wild they were starting Goga. I was like, I hate when teams do that though. Like, yeah, we're gonna keep we don't trust this guy to play minutes, but we're gonna make him the starter now because we just want to keep our backup in the role that he's used to.
So we're gonna get a lot of ownership to Orlando. Whether it's Fultz or other guys from a trickle down for Fultz, that'll be interesting. It is absolute. Chalk Goga is happening today, barring any news that he's not the starter. Otherwise, he is going to be 30+% owned today.
Agreed.
Anything else for the Magic?
No.
Well, then I got one for you guys. It's hitting that like button. Helps us out a ton. And we're only at 89 with 500 people here. So hit that thumbs up. It helps us out quite a bit. And then NBA Treat. That is the promo code for you guys. 7 letters, all smushed together. Nope, 8 letters. Yeah, 8 letters. I tried to do the math. It's Monday. Give me a break, guys. 8 letters all together. One big word.
Math, literally counting.
Yeah. NBA lineup generator, $4.99. This is the tool for the large majority of the people that watch this show. If you're a 1 lineup guy, a 2 lineup guy, even upwards of 20, this is the tool you're looking for. We handle all of the simulation on the back end. We generate thousands and thousands of lineups. We get rid of everything that we think stinks. We present the rest to you. If you click save or discard, another lineup will pop right back up on the screen. You can get through them pretty quickly. Chalky builds, contrarian builds, balance builds, lock players in, swap players around if you want. You'll see projections and optimal rates. This is the perfect tool for you. It's fantastic on mobile as well. $4.99 for the first week. If you hate it, cancel at any point in time during that week. You're only going to be out that $4.99. Deal's going to go away sooner rather than later, folks. So make sure you're taking advantage now. Adams Washington Wizards are the biggest underdog on the slate by a lot. 12-point dogs in Philly, 228 total. Tricky spot here for Washington. Denny questionable, Gafford questionable, Kispert questionable. Hard to want to talk about anybody here for Washington right now. And that shows in the ownership. Nobody really getting anything other than Kuzma. As of this moment, I basically don't want anything for Washington. If all three guys end up out, maybe we create some value.
Yeah, as is right now, Kuzma's the only guy I'd be getting to. I'd be a bit over the field on him, which I don't mind that low ownership and that price tag. But again, it's also early. There's definitely guys in that are showing up for me right now that are not going to be showing up for me later. So my exposures right now mean basically nothing. But Kuzma is the only guy from Washington I'm getting to.
I got 3%. I got 2% at Gafford, which seems to happen all the time. I don't want that either. 0.87 fantasy points per minute for Gafford is so bad for a center.
Yeah, not great. And it's like, from a pricing standpoint, he's a natural pivot to Goga if you just wanted a lower owned guy that could have a good game. But realistically, at center, if you're getting away from Goga, just go get two really high upside guys that are at a different price point.
Yeah, I would rather have a low-ish owned good center than a low-ish owned alternative Goga.
Yeah, like ideally, if I'm staying in that price range and just trying to find a low owned pivot, it would be Mo Wagner just because he does negatively correlate with him. But realistically, I think it's a spot where Goga projects as such a good play that you're better off just saying, okay, I'm just getting out of that range and going to try and get two 7K guys that score 50.
Well, that was quick. I do like to run you through like the torture chamber of talking about Washington, but there's not enough to talk about.
I just don't care about that team either.
Well, and for right now, for us, there's really nothing to talk about.
Right.
We can't hypothesize three questionable dudes. Like, we'll know more on the deeper dive, I hope.
Yeah. I mean, and even then, it's like maybe we'll get Mike Muscala and Koulibaly.
Yeah. I like the opposite side of this one a lot, and the ownership is not showing that. 11% to Embiid, 5 to Oubre, 2 to Maxey. I got to 12 of Maxey. I got to 17 of Oubre, and I do not feel bad about this one at all. I got 40 of Embiid.
Yeah, I got 32 of Embiid. I do already see a 3K player just being jammed into my lineups that I'm not going to end up with. So that could be impacting how I'm getting so much Embiid. But if, like, by all means, if you can get to 11-2 Embiid, he looks really, really good. The opportunity cost at center always comes into play, and today's no different. But this Washington team sucks, and Embiid is, very likely, if this game does blow out, to be a big reason why. But we've talked about it, or I talked about it in an article the other day. I think we talked about it on the show too. Embiid is playing a little bit different role this year too, like taking on a bigger role as a playmaker. 1.74 DraftKings points per minute. He's actually passing 31.2% assist percentage. It hasn't affected his usage. He's still at 36.5%. Going back to the start of last season, he was about a 37% usage guy, about a 21 or so percent assist percentage. So you've seen a nice jump in assist percentage. You've seen a bump in his per minute production. Looks great if you can get to him. As far as the rest of the team goes, not much ownership. The pricing isn't that favorable. You have a pretty cheap $5,300 price tag on DeAnthony Melton, but when this team's healthy, you're just not expecting much offensively out of Melton, so tough to really love him as a fantasy option. Oubre at 6K, shooting guard, small forward, perfectly fine secondary option. I don't mind Maxey at 8,300, but I do think the price is, it's still pretty much adjusted to what you expect out of him for whatever games Embiid is playing, at least.
Yeah, I think he's like properly priced. But I kind of like it against Washington at 2%. Like, it's not like Jordan Poole is going to be chasing him back in transition D or anything like that. Like, they're going to be lazy as shit about it.
Yeah, Jordan Poole is going to be cherry picking for the off the backboard passes to Kuz.
Yes. But yeah, as I see it right now, Embiid is standing out in a big, big way to me. Like, think about all the missed shots that he's going to be able to corral.
And then the fact that Gafford could turn into Mike Muscala.
Yeah. Love it, love it, love it. So yeah, I anticipate having a bunch of Embiid because throughout the day, unless it opens up center stuff, throughout the day, we're just going to make it easier and easier to get to Joel Embiid.
Exactly.
Maybe it ends up becoming 2 pay-ups instead of just Embiid for me, but either direction, I'm happy with it because Washington just is dog shit.
Yep. And as far as the Maxey point goes, again, it's just a pricing thing. Not only is it, you're saying, is he overpriced or correctly priced or whatever at 8,300, but you just start looking at what's around them. You have Giddey, you have Randall, you have Hero, you have Bam, you have Brunson, you have Butler, you have Wemby, you have Cunningham. Like, all of those guys, like, clearly some look better than others, but from a like, oh yeah, he could just really have a big enough game where you don't care that he was 8,300. All that applies to all of those guys.
Sure does. Yeah, like if he's 2% and I have 12, I think that's like the perfect allocation of like trying to get a stand on somebody there.
Sure.
It's not something crazy.
Yeah.
And
if
but
he's
he
2%
could
and I
easily
have none,
be
I'm fine.
Giddy or whoever, like insert any one of those other names. Like anybody could soak that up at that point.
Right.
He's also awesome. He's a fun dude to like want to have rostered.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm upset I didn't just make the bet when Greg tweeted it out for most improved.
That was my snap answer to who did I think it was going to be.
Yeah, I read the question and was like, I'm still not back to work. I don't want to think about basketball, and just moved on. But I wish I'd bet it.
26% assist rate for Maxey in the 5 games he's played so far. That's 87th percentile. He's shooting 47% from 3, 64% true shooting. Obviously, the 3-point percentage is likely to come down a couple points, but 43% last year, 42%, 43% the year before. It's not falling that far. He's an exceptional 3-point shooter.
Yeah. Somebody in chat said Maxey greater than Halliburton. I don't know if they meant real life or DFS, but no.
No.
I still don't think people realize how good Halliburton is.
Yeah. I wouldn't rule that out for Maxey.
It could happen for sure. Maxey, I think, will be very, very good.
I would pick Halliburton before Maxey in this moment.
Yeah.
But that is not an indictment on Tyrese Maxey by any means.
No,
Huge fan.
Incredibly good.
Yeah. I did that one this morning too. For about a half hour of time from 6:45 to 7:15 of just shitting all over De'Aaron Fox and the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, I mean, it's still my favorite thing is to just mention that trade and Kings fans just come out of the woodwork. But Sabonis got us to the playoffs. It's like, yeah, and you gave up like what's going to be one of the best point guards in the league for the next 10 plus years.
Should have brought you in for the process show this morning. I had some help, but not enough of it. S&P was probably ready to never come back.
I assume he was on your side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Milwaukee Bucks. There's one like random Kings fan on Twitter. I don't remember the name. Doesn't follow me or anything. Just anytime the Kings like do something well, just comes out of the woodwork to like be like or like basically anything happens, like comes out of the woodwork. Like he harps a lot because I said Buddy Hield's valuable, and Halliburton obviously was like giving him up was a huge mistake. Yeah. And so he'll just keep coming out of the woodwork like, you still think Buddy Hield's valuable? Well, it's like, well, yes, and you're ignoring the part where you gave up Tyrese fucking Halliburton.
Yeah, we had a good time. It's probably some Kings burner. Probably like Vivek Ranadive's fucking Twitter burner account that you were arguing about.
De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah. Bucks are 5.5-point favorites in Brooklyn, 231 total. Brook Lopez at 6% ownership is the high mark. It's 8 to Giannis on FanDuel. I actually like Giannis quite a bit for 10-3 power forward on FanDuel, but don't really see me getting to Dame or Giannis today.
Yeah, just kind of status quo on DraftKings. Like still 10-6 for Giannis. He's $600 less than Embiid. The playing time, you can't count on as many minutes for Giannis at a 10-6 price tag as you would like to. You know, we've just seen even in competitive games where he's either tracking or he finishes at 32 minutes, or non-competitive games where he's tracking 32 minutes. You can't just like give him 36 and be confident in it. He did play 36 last game, but it's something that's going to happen, but it's not your projection or expectation. And then on top of that, his assist percentage is down this year, and pretty obvious why. So it's tough, especially on DraftKings to get to him. It is easier on FanDuel where he's cheaper and where the positions are just different. So, you know, he's a little bit more useful. 1.3 DraftKings points per minute this year. Just not, you shouldn't be thinking of him from a fantasy standpoint as the same Giannis that he's been in previous years. Still a great NBA player, obviously, but just doesn't have to do as much. And you know that they would rather not run him into the ground also.
Yeah, usage rate is going to be down and probably not change. And his assist rate is going to be down dramatically and have no real path to changing.
Right.
That's
like
just
he does still have a 33.8% usage rate this year, which is good. But the assist percentage is 19%.
31 and 30 the previous 2 seasons for reference.
He has basically the exact same like increase that we just talked about for Embiid. Giannis has gone the other direction.
Yeah. So that's Milwaukee. Brooklyn side of this one, a little bit different. Still no Nick Claxton, still no Cam Johnson, Lonnie Walker, probable. Single-digit ownership across the board for everybody on Brooklyn on the DraftKings side. Dorian Finney-Smith gets to 14% on FanDuel. I don't mind like most of these Brooklyn starters being my last guy in, just because the minutes are going to be there for these. They're playing 30 plus. So if it's Simmons or Cam Thomas or Bridges, Royce O'Neal, Dinwiddie, I don't mind getting one of them. I just don't think that I go crazy to get one. It's just like I'll probably have 3 or 4% of like 5 dudes.
Yeah, that's how I see it also. Pricing on this team is just efficient. It has been most of the season, except for when guys are out. Bridges at 7,800, Thomas at 7,100. Simmons lost small forward eligibility on DraftKings. He's point guard only now at 7K, makes him much less appealing. I think Dinwiddie is still the most appealing price tag at 6,300, just because, out of Bridges, Thomas, Simmons, Dinwiddie, any of those guys can, well, from a scoring standpoint, any of Bridges, Thomas, Dinwiddie can kind of be the guy any given night. Simmons generally not going to be that guy, but from a production standpoint, like any of them can have a big DFS game. Dinwiddie's at least the least expensive, but
yeah,
none of them look very good at all.
Nope. No, I got the 7% of Royce O'Neal, and it's just like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, I've been like randomly getting. He's been one of those guys where like I'll get him before lock, and then I'll late swap, and he just completely disappears.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So yeah, I wish I had more to add here for Brooklyn, but we don't have any Q tags on it or anything like that. They're 5.5 point dogs at home, which is not good. Game 6, Lakers 1 point dogs in Miami, 222 total. This Miami team is a steaming pile too, which we're about to get to. But 7% ownership to D'Angelo Russell is the high mark here. Rui still out. Jared Vanderbilt and Gabe Vincent both still out. Jackson Hayes questionable. I mean, I think AD looks good at 9,900. I don't really have all that much, probably because I'm getting to all things Embiid. But if I'm getting anywhere, it's Russell and AD and probably nowhere else.
Yeah, pretty much how I see it also. I'm actually getting to LeBron and Russell right now, but neither one a lot, and certainly wouldn't be upset about getting to Davis either. Davis is actually getting less ownership than LeBron and has a lower optimal percentage, probably just because he's a center only, whereas LeBron gives you the forward positions. Yeah. I think Russell's the easiest guy to get to. 6,600 for him at point guard shooting guard rather, is still pretty appealing. There are plenty of options in that range, but he looks fine. Never going to be upset about getting to LeBron or Davis. We had talked about it the other day where I do think that expecting LeBron to play real minutes is the right way to approach this. Like, are you just going to get screwed some games because they hold him to 29 or 30? Yeah, it's going to happen over the course of the season, but way more often than not, we're seeing him get those mid-30s games. But you should still generally be projecting Davis a minute or two ahead of LeBron. LeBron did play a couple minutes more than him last game, but you also had some foul issues in that one for Davis in the second quarter. So, I think expecting like 34-ish minutes on average for LeBron, or 35 minutes for LeBron, and then like 36, 37 for Davis makes sense.
Yeah. And LeBron especially, you got to pay attention to who they're playing, where it is, and what the television situation is. Like LeBron going to play in Miami, probably not the one that he's going to play 28 minutes for in a competitive game. LeBron in against some garbage team on like Washington. a third day out of 4.
Right.
Not on primetime TV, probably going to get him wrapped in bubble wrap in the fourth quarter of some of these games. He's not playing 28 minutes against the Miami Heat today, barring foul trouble or like injury or something like that. Not against the Heat, even though the Heat are that kind of dog shit team. Let's get to it. I hate this team so much. 3% ownership to Jimmy Butler or 6% ownership to Tyler Hero. Those are the two high marks on DK. It's 11 to Butler on FanDuel. I don't have more than 2% of anybody here. Injury report. So I think these idiots are just going to list everybody as available every day to like hide dumb news somewhere else. Bam Adebayo, available. Thomas Bryant, available. Butler, probable. RJ Hampton, questionable, useless. Haywood Highsmith, Jaime Jaquez, Kevin Love, all available. Love, apparently out of the rotation now. Caleb Martin is out. Duncan Robinson is probable. Do you roster anybody from Miami? Because I think they look mostly awful.
They look pretty bad. Hero's the only guy I'm getting to right now. 6% owned. We have him with a 10% chance of being optimal. I got around like 12%. So like he looks fine, but it's just another $8,100 guy. There's plenty of guys you can say that about. Butler and Bam, you're never upset if you get to them at no ownership, but there's also a reason they're not getting much ownership, and it's that there's a lot of alternatives around them that looks similar, or in this case, better.
Yeah, I just don't see it. Like if my 10% or whatever of Tyrese Maxey became Tyler Hero, it would change nothing of my day and I'd be fine with it. But like pick whatever you want in that one.
Right. Yeah.
Take
Like I'm getting as much Hero as you are Maxey, basically.
Yeah. And I think that you and I would not care at all how that's laid out.
Same play.
Yep. For sure. I'd rather cheer for Maxey. So I feel better about it a little bit. It's always nice to face the Wizards too. But yeah, like I just what are we supposed to do here? They're not a good basketball team right now. And they're not a good fantasy team right now. Kyle Lowry has maintained his sub 10% usage rate. So that's still happening. 9.5. This team is sorely missing Damian Lillard.
I mean, they're sorely missing every star that they've supposedly been getting for the last 3 years.
Yeah. That one in particular, I think, really stings. He's the exact thing they needed.
I loved it though. Like that's my favorite part of every offseason.
Yeah.
It's just like Miami writers convincing their fan base that they're set up perfectly to get somebody. The whole fan base buys in, and then that just never happens.
Yeah. Now, Marcos, that's very, very Miami. They're not a good basketball team, and then they make the finals. Like, I don't trust these shits. And when we get to the playoffs, they seem to just they get a horseshoe, jam that up their ass. And
having an excellent coach in the postseason does matter.
Yeah. Yeah. Having the best postseason coach in the postseason is helpful. But
shooting 80% from three also is helpful.
Certainly does. But they're bad. They're legitimately bad. And I got nothing else for Miami. I do have something for Bet365 though. First, hit the like button, helps out a ton. And then it's very simple. Link in the description. All you have to do is click that and sign up. Head on over to Bet365 if you're in Kentucky, Ohio, New Jersey, Virginia, Iowa, or Colorado. Bet $5, get $150. Easy. Well, the simplest way that you can start off a bankroll at a sports book. Grab some additional picks from the Odd Shopper YouTube channel or from the Twitter handles of some of the guys that are at Stochastic. You Bet Pro if you're interested. Come to Stochastic. Go to oddshopper.com. Shop around for some lines if you want to. All of this stuff can be done for you. But the big key is what you see on the screen. Bet 5 to get 150. You got to be 21 or over, unless you live in Kentucky. Lucky for you, sort of 18 or over. If you have a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
Are there any teams that we're actually going to play guys from today?
Well, we had Orlando.
Yeah, true.
Indiana.
I just pulled up the next game and was like, nope, not this one.
That's not a lot. The Los Angeles Clippers, sorry, damn it, I do this every time. The LA Clippers, 1.5 point favorites in New York, 225 total. No ownership coming into the Clippers. If we're assuming that James Harden plays today, I have no idea how you play anyone here.
I was going to say, like, I have no idea. Like, Harden's not priced down or anything. He's 8,800. George is 91. Kawhi's 86. Russ is 72. Zubats is 6K. I legitimately have no idea how you get to the Clippers.
There's no way.
Like, I can't even bring myself to say, like, well, Paul George could have a big game. Like, there's 40 guys I'd play ahead of him.
I'll take Halliburton.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You can't play Halliburton at small forward, but yeah.
You know what I mean, though.
Yeah. It's just we don't have anybody on the Clippers projected for more than 40 DraftKings points. And there are four guys on the Clippers projected to essentially be like the number one guy, or priced rather to be like the number one guy on their offense.
Anxious to see it. It's going to be ugly when they have what they're going to run out as their starting five out there.
Yeah. How long until Westbrook ends up not being a starter?
I mean, I said 2 weeks. That got some pushback on from chat this morning, but I just don't know how you make it. Like, it's just a poor allocation of resources.
Like, who ends up replacing him, Tucker or Powell?
0 for 2, Terrence Mann.
Oh, I forgot about Terrence Mann because I wasn't looking at his name.
Yeah. I mean, in theory, it could be Tucker, but I don't think that's what you're looking for. Although you probably do want Tucker and Harden out there together when you can, but I think that's a probably different proportional thing. But for a while, you're going to get a lot of Russ.
Yeah, I didn't like either of the names I mentioned. They were just the best on the list of guys projected to play today.
Yeah. But yeah, unplayable. And especially because this is a game against the Knicks, a team that like is usually a team you're not looking to get DFS plays against. And that's not really all that different. RJ Barrett questionable again here. 7% ownership coming into Randall, 18 to Randall on FanDuel at 7,800. There are a bunch of different versions of Randall today, whether that's Chet Holmgren or Victor Wembanyama or whatever you want to do. If Barrett ends up out, the Knicks will look a little bit better. Otherwise, if you want a random Nick in your lineup, go for it.
Yeah, not much for me. A little bit of Randall. I have like a lineup with your boy Hartenstein at 3,600, but don't really see anything. Like Jalen Brunson at 8,400 is fine. It could also be Maxey. It could also be Hero. It could also be Butler. Yeah. And the answer in chat to why can't James Harden come off the bench would be, why would you bring James Harden off the bench when you could put Russell Westbrook on the bench?
Yeah.
Like
my guess is you probably want to bench the dude that's shitty and not the dude that was one of the 8 best offensive players in the league last year.
Yeah. Usually starters in the NBA are the good players and backups are the not good ones.
Yeah. You don't make that trade for James Harden to be like, here's 26 minutes off the pine.
Now watch Russ.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, we gotta remember that James Harden in the regular season is gonna cook. Like, because he does.
Yeah.
Always. And it's gonna look a lot better with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard out there. For sure. Russ is slightly different. But yeah. I figure I give it 2 weeks before they gotta just be like, hey man, you gotta come off the bench again.
Is he still on the team at the All-Star break?
Yeah. Unless he's really bitching, because he's making the minimum. Like there's no he's not really like any sort of trade, like there's no like salary swap situation for him where like, oh, you can bring in a $20 million player with an asset to send him out. He doesn't make enough money to like matter, so he would have to be real salty on the back end.
I was thinking more along the lines of like, at what point does it get to him being like, look, I want to be somewhere else?
I don't think there's anywhere for him to go.
True.
So yeah, if he was making legitimate money, then I think that he would be live to get shipped out in a trade at the deadline. But because he's just useless. Like he's not going to screen off the ball. If Harden has the ball, no one's going to fucking cover him in the corner or wherever he is. Defensively, like, is he fine as the 5th guy now actively? Sure. That's not going to be a much better scenario now. Like he just, once you have Harden and Kawhi and Paul George on the floor, the things that make Russell Westbrook best are the things that are actively being diminished by those 3 guys. And that's just like, all right, well, I'd rather have a guy that fits those 3 than doesn't. Good luck. Good luck. What were we missing here? I guess we're going to the next game. Utah Jazz. 4-point dogs in Chicago, 222 total. Got a little bit of ownership coming in here. 12 to Talen Horton-Tucker, 14 to Jordan Clarkson. That sounds familiar. They are the 2 guys that I would look to get to immediately. Clarkson being the number 1 dude for me. No real priorities, though, here for the Jazz.
Yeah, they're just a solid team to get to. Getting to a little bit of Collins, getting to a little bit of Clarkson, nothing crazy. Prices have slowly come up. 6,100 on DraftKings now for Collins, 6K for Clarkson. Clarkson's still getting a bit of ownership at 15%. I don't have a real problem with that. We have him 8% to be optimal. But yeah, not the same Utah team that you're just kind of jamming into lineups like they had been, but still perfectly happy to get to some Collins, some Clarkson.
I would have liked to see Harden in Miami. People are going to make jokes about that one, obviously, because of the nightlife portion of it all. But like, we got to remember, it's not like James Harden is in bad shape when he's playing basketball. Like he's not going to, like, the cardio considerations for playing for the Miami Heat were not going to be the impediment.
No. And I mean, he also went to LA where I think nightlife's decent.
Yeah. Yeah. Similar situation there for sure. I think he'd have been fine in Miami, but, you know, it also wouldn't have been great. It's not like Jimmy Butler spotting up in the corner to take those threes that he can't take.
There.
Yeah.
And again, I was just happy to see him not go to Miami because I really enjoy that meme.
Yeah. I mean, I would have enjoyed him going to Miami because then I would have known very quickly that Miami wasn't going to succeed in the playoffs. True. Or we finally got it from Harden, which would have been an interesting dynamic. Then he could just crown Eric Spoelstra at that point. If he could drag it out of Harden, man, he is the king of the ship permanently. Chicago Bulls. I hate this. I'm so sick of rostering this stupid team. 16% ownership coming into a $7,600 Zach LaVine. Another 10 coming into Torrey Craig. 15 to DeRozan. You get a scattered amount of Vooch or Patrick Williams. DeRozan and LaVine are both 20% on FanDuel. I think you got to fill out at least a little bit with some of Chicago, and I'm getting to a bunch of LaVine again.
Yeah, I'm not really getting there right now, but that is something I expect to change as the day goes on. LaVine still looks good at this price tag, as he has pretty much every slate recently. Shooting guard, small forward's really nice. Playing time's there. He's just shy of a fantasy point per minute this year, which is surprising, but still has a 29% usage rate. It should bounce back at least somewhat. So still like getting him shooting guard, small forward. DeRozan looks fine at 7,200, small forward, power forward. A bit overowned, 15% to about a 7% chance of being optimal, but nothing, too concerning there. Vooch at 7,500. Vooch is the type of guy where, we talked about that Miles Turner ownership earlier, and Miles Turner looks great. I don't mean this as, don't play Turner or any sort of a knock on Turner, but it's $600 more for Vooch. He projects behind Turner from a median standpoint, but you're getting like almost a 5-to-1 ownership discount. We know that Vooch can go just put up 50 plus fantasy points and beat Turner by, 15. Like, it's very comparable range of outcomes, even though Turner projects better. So the lack of ownership coming into Vooch is kind of interesting.
And Vooch, 1.07 fantasy points per minute so far this season. A little bit off of his normal paces, but like not Daniel Gafford rates.
Right.
Yeah, so it looks like it's another LaVine day for me. Whoopee. Exciting. How do you want to handle Torrey Craig?
I don't.
Fair.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm not getting to him right now. He's 3,500. I assume giving you like 22 minutes usually.
Well, not necessarily.
I mean, yeah, he played 27 last game, but
yeah.
Well, I don't expect that to be the real rotation.
Well, if he's starting now, that's a very different scenario. Who do they close with then? Do you think he would leave the closing lineup for someone? For Caruso?
I mean, usually, yes.
Okay. I'm just putting that out there. If moving into the starting lineup at least adds some ambiguity to what they close with.
Right. There is more potential for him now. He's also just not a very good point per minute guy either. So,
no.
Like low owned at 3,600, he's okay. But the minutes I think are still in question. I mean, what was the first game he started? Brooklyn game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that one. He played 23 minutes. They closed the first half with Caruso over him. They closed the game with Caruso over him.
Yeah.
I expect that to be the case more often than not.
Same. Although against Chicago might not be as necessary to get Caruso, or against Utah, they don't really need a Caruso guy.
True.
As much as like some other teams, they don't really have that kind of creator like that. Sorry, Jordan Clarkson. Chemistry 33 hit us with the super chat. Took second in the 4-point play last night using the lineup generator. Thanks, fellas.
Nice. Congrats.
That's what we're looking for, man. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. The tool's right there for you. Makes it easy. Second in the 4-point play. That's going to cover many, many, many re-ups of the lineup generator. Maybe, just maybe, take a run at that Sims tool. Sacramento Kings, 1.5-point dogs in Houston, 218 total. Yes, the Kings, just by not having De'Aaron Fox, are underdogs in Houston. Smoke that one in your pipe right now. The highest owned guy on DraftKings is Chris Duarte, which I thought was just a quirk for me this morning. It turns out it's right for everybody. 14% ownership to Sabonis on FanDuel, where he will perpetually be a different play when he has power forward center eligibility. I do think Chris Duarte is the best option for you on Sacramento right now. No part of that feels good. I'd rather have basically nothing.
Yeah, I mean, Duarte at 3,700, I get it. As soon as Fox went down, you and I talked about Duarte being the guy that could, at that time, was not projected to do a lot and could, just because of his skill set and how easy it is for him to fit into different lineups. One thing I will kind of caution from last game is he did pick up 4 minutes and 43 seconds at the end of the second quarter because of Kevin Huerter foul trouble. So those minutes aren't usually there. Huerter then just played like shit in the second half. Duarte picked up 4 minutes and 19 seconds essentially in their closing lineup, which was Sabonis, Barnes, Murray, Monk, and Duarte. That closing lineup is just going to be very volatile based on, who's playing well, how the game's going, all of that. Sabonis is going to be in it. Keegan's usually going to be in it. And then it's just going to be like three of Huerter, Barnes, Mitchell, Monk, Duarte. That is very, very volatile. So at 3,700, given, shooting guard, small forward eligibility, the fact that there are minutes missing from Fox, there is, production missing. It is a good matchup, all of that. I do think Duarte is a solid value play. I just think it's important also to not just quickly look and say, oh, he played 26 minutes last game, he's going to always play 26 minutes. Like, he can still have games where he plays 18.
I gave him 23. That got me about 10% of him, and I think I feel pretty good there.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me.
I'm good on he's certainly not going to Davion Mitchell or anything.
In the previous game, this is, I guess, I didn't even realize it was this bad, but this is where the concern comes from. He played 26 minutes last game, so it's very easy to just be like, oh yeah, he looks good. They played Golden State without De'Aaron Fox, and he played 6.8 minutes.
Yeah.
Again, yeah. I think it's more likely. I think the minutes we saw last game are more likely, or at least, closer to what he averages going forward without Fox. But it's not like this is a safe play at all.
Nope, not in the slightest. If he ended up having ridiculous ownership, I'd be super nervous.
Right. I feel like the ownership is kind of just making me have the opposite conversation of what I had before that Golden State game. He wasn't getting any ownership against Golden State, and it was like, this is kind of interesting because I have no idea what to expect. And he barely plays, and then the next game he plays a lot, and he's getting ownership. So it's like, okay, well, this is still interesting because I have no idea what to expect. Even against Houston, Colby Jones and Sasha, both, and obviously Monk, all came into the game before Duarte.
Vezenkov.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Gesundheit.
Yeah.
There's nothing else here, though, right? Like I said, nothing looks good for Sacramento.
No, I mean, same problems as always with Sabonis being center only and not really seeing a big bump in fantasy production without Fox. Keegan's priced up. Playing time is there usually, which is nice, but not really favorable pricing on this team for the most part.
For everybody that's going to ask, what about Sabonis? What about Monk? What about Keegan Murray? If you really want to know how this is working out, Chris Duarte is getting 8% ownership for the Spurs. That's the most. Second most is JaVale McGee. All of your questions are answered by those two things. Houston Rockets. Got some ownership coming in here. This team is at full strength other than Tari Eason still out. Amin Thompson obviously out for a bit with that right ankle sprain. But 21% ownership coming into Dylan Brooks, 14 to Van Vliet, 12 to Jabari Smith, 9 to Jalen Green, who has been straight ass, 7% coming into Alperen Şengün. I think you got to be very interested in the starters here for Houston.
Yeah, completely agree. Good matchup. Pricing is fine. Şengün at 8K, no real problem there as a tournament option, pulling 7% ownership. Van Vliet at 7,500 looks like a pretty solid mid-range point guard. 15% ownership coming into him. Dylan Brooks, shooting guard, small forward at 5,200, still playing a lot of minutes, 38 minutes last game. It's Dylan Brooks. You're not going to feel great about it, but that many minutes at 5,200 with that positional eligibility is going to be nice. Jabari Smith still pretty cheap at 5,800. You mentioned Jalen Green not playing well, but the ceiling is still there for him. Just not going to hit it all that often. But any of those starters are, I think, completely reasonable. Aaron Holiday, as a side note, was the guy that is just completely ruining my early slate or early in the day exposures right now.
How much?
58%.
Yeah, that's obviously not a thing that you can do.
Yeah, I mean, we have him projected for a 14% chance of being optimal at 4% owned. So he's just getting slammed in the lineups right now, and that will not happen later.
I got 20% of Brooks, 20% of Van Vliet, 20% of Jabari, 30 of Jalen Green right now, another 10 of Şengün. It's probably the team I have the most of at this moment.
Yeah, I didn't get much of it other than like jamming in Brooks and Holiday, but again, it's just like completely not what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Other than maybe the Brooks part.
Look, Sacramento has a truly terrible defensive team, and this game should be competitive because while I'm not the biggest De'Aaron Fox fan in the world, he is very clearly a guy that makes the Sacramento Kings way, way, way better.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean just because I wanted Tyrese Halliburton there doesn't mean I don't think De'Aaron Fox is any good. That is a big loss for them. The fact that they're a 1.5 dog in Houston is wild. Anything else here?
No.
All righty. Final thing to touch on, schedule for the rest of the day. 4:45 Eastern time, NBA Deeper Dive. You've also got NBA Live Before Lock at 6. And then NFL Showdown Live Before Lock at 7:15. So we do have some Monday Night Football going on tonight. It's going to be a good one. It's a good schedule. Lots of content. Adam and I will be back for the Deeper Dive with a bunch more news. And then don't forget, stokastic.com/avatar. Get our logo. Use it at DraftKings and FanDuel. If you finish in the top 3 of a contest with 5,000 or more entries, you will get 1 month of whatever Stokastic package you're looking for. That's going to be a $200 value. Don't sleep on it, folks. It's easy. You just got to tweet your result to @StokasticHOF. You see it on the screen right now. It's simple. We want you guys to succeed. You guys don't have to pay a single cent to do what I'm saying right now. And the best case scenario for you is you get a free month of tools for nothing. So take advantage if you can. And hit that like button one last time. Let's go to the Boston Celtics. 4-point favorites in Minnesota, 225 total. No ownership coming into this team, and I agree.
Yep. It just feels like every other team we've talked about. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis, Holiday, obviously all can give you big games, but they're just all pretty much correctly priced. I still think Jaylen Brown's the most interesting to me. Shooting guard, small forward at 7,900. Just knowing that he's going to have those games where the offense does run through him. It's not always going to happen. It's not going to be the most common occurrence, but shooting guard, small forward at 7,900 and no ownership. Perfect pivot to like Zach LaVine, for example, but nothing that looks very good. Derek White being back, takes Horford out of play. So I don't really see anything that's a priority from Boston.
Nope. Like add Porzingis to the list of guys in that like 8K-ish power forward center range where it's like, if you need to pivot off of whoever has the most ownership, go for this one. But this is going to just be a random number generator of like, pick the dude you think is going to have the best day. These guys are loaded.
Which again goes back to why Brown is my preferred option, just because he does have the most useful positional eligibility.
Yeah.
But, any of these guys can have big games. It's just not, like you expect. The reason they don't look good from a median standpoint or a projection standpoint is that more often than not, Jason Tatum's going to be the one. And Jason Tatum is $10,300. So like, obviously you're projecting Tatum to get the bulk of the usage, but at 10-3, he's not going to look that good anyway. And then you're projecting, second, third tier usage for Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis. At their salaries, it's not going to look that good either. The reason I think that Brown in particular with shooting guard, small forward, and to some extent, Porzingis or Holiday are interesting is they're at least not the ones being projected to be the one. And in a given game, they can be, especially Jaylen Brown. So you at least have that upside there where it's like, oh, this was a Jaylen Brown game and he is not priced for that. Whereas, yes, Jason Tatum can still have big games at 10-3, but he's priced for it to be the Jason Tatum game in large part.
On the opposite side for Minnesota, got a little bit of ownership coming in here. Interesting team to talk about. No injury news that matters. 17% ownership coming into $4,500 slow-mo. 14% ownership coming into Mike Conley. 17% coming into Naz Reid. I'm getting that as well, and I don't like it, but I don't mind getting to a 6% owned Towns. I got 11% of that. 8,100 power forward center. Stop me if you've heard that before. 6% ownership coming into Gobert, who I think is in like a decent enough spot here at 6,600. I like a lot of this Minnesota side, but holy shit, is this a terrible matchup?
Yeah, it is. I think the guys getting ownership right now, Conley, Reed, Anderson, to some extent that probably drops as we get more news. Right now, I think it's a lot of just like kind of placeholder where they look better than guys priced around them. I will say Jaden McDaniels, I think at 4,300, like if this all were to hold, like let's just say the slate looks exactly the same at 7 p.m. as it does right now. I think Jaden McDaniels is getting slept on just because you haven't seen the good game yet. But like last game, he was just in foul trouble the entire time. So he ended up playing 20 minutes, played like 6 minutes in the entire first half with 3 fouls. He's not a bad point per minute guy. I don't think there's a massive difference between him and like Kyle Anderson, for example. And Anderson's getting 17% ownership. McDaniels is getting none. Like I prefer Anderson just because, we do know his role. We have seen him actually, produce or get those minutes and everything. But I do think McDaniels is getting slept on a little bit relative to him. Conley certainly makes sense to me as a $4,900 point guard. Reed's another one at 4,700. Good point per minute guy. Typically going to give you around 22 minutes or so. Will play more if Gobert or Towns are in foul trouble. Power forward eligibility is nice. As better value opens up, that interest is going to come down. But, he is a solid enough value.
Yeah, McDaniels is interesting because at some point in time, he's going to get back up to the 30 minutes they want him to play.
Right.
When that happens, he's going to be underrepresented. If that's today, 30 minutes of Jaden McDaniels at 4,300 and no real ownership is going to make you feel pretty damn good.
Right. And even if it's like 26, 28, that still just puts him on par with Kyle Anderson.
Sure does. Yeah, like that's what they want. That's the goal. Jaden McDaniels is a closer for Minnesota, but he didn't start the season ready to go. So
right. Yeah, like Jaden McDaniels is not just some guy that's out there playing, soaking up 20 minutes for Minnesota. Like this is an actual guy for them.
He is a high level wing defender for what you want in the NBA right now. Shot 39% from 3 last season. Like just a perfect extra dude to have on the team. That like Danny Green type role where it's like, or PJ Tucker, whatever you want to say, like play the shit out of some defense, shoot the 3 anytime you're open. Probably not going to get a lot of looks otherwise. Atlanta Hawks are 3.5 point favorites in Oklahoma City, 236 total.
Actually, one other thing, just to your point too, I thought about it late, but like in some ways, McDaniels is like exactly who you'd want against the Celtics too, because he's not going to be the one that they're like worried about throwing one of their 4 lockdown defenders at.
Yeah, he's going to have the easiest defensive assignment or like dude on him at least.
Right.
Yeah, nuts. Lots of ownership coming into the Hawks. I'd like to have this conversation. Everybody that's normally available is available. 10% to Bogdanovich, 15 to Capella, 10 to Hunter, 15 to Murray, 20 to Jalen Johnson, 6 to Trae Young, 4 to Bay, 7 to Okongwu. I got like a little bit of all of these guys. I didn't think that would happen, but I'm way under on DeJounte Murray at 17% ownership. I just kind of have like 10 of everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think Atlanta looks pretty good here. I like the pricing. The ownership to Murray, I guess, is maybe a little bit high, but we still have him actually going under owned. We have him 22% to be optimal at 18% ownership. I'm getting a ton of Murray right now, but again, take that with a grain of salt. But he's showing up the most for me from this team. Happy to get there at 7,800. Still really like that price tag. I like Young as a tournament play at 5% owned. I think you're overpaying, probably isn't the right word, but if Tyrese Halliburton is 9,400, I think you're overpaying for Young at 9,300. But still certainly capable of giving you those big games. He's low owned, so that's nice. We have the Capella Okongwu situation where they're just splitting 48 minutes. We don't really know exactly how from game to game, but Capella at 5,700. Whenever he happens to play like 26 plus minutes, he's going to look pretty good. Okongwu at 4,700. Whenever he's in the closing lineup, he's going to look pretty good. Last game, we got 19.5 from Okongwu. We got 28.5 from Capella. So it is nice to at least have to see that happen. It was starting to get to the point where it was just like, okay, is Okongwu just their closing center? But we did see the normal starting rotation, I guess, where like Capella does play 28 minutes. So very volatile for both guys, but as a result, their prices are a little bit cheaper than they would be if they actually had a set in stone rotation. Like if Capella was just playing 28 minutes every game, he'd be north of 5,700. If Okongwu was playing 25 every game, he'd be north of 4,700. So wouldn't play them together, but both of them end up looking somewhat interesting. Jalen Johnson at 5,600 moved back into the starting lineup last game, played 36 minutes. Assuming he starts again, looks like a pretty good value at 5,600. Saddiq Bey came off the bench, still played 26 minutes. I think he's getting slept on. 4% owned. This is another one where like if Kyle Anderson off the bench playing 26 to 28 minutes is pulling 16% ownership, why is Saddiq Bey at the same price in the same role pulling 4% ownership? I don't really get why he's so low owned. Not that I'm like in love with Sadiq Bey as a player or anything, but I think he's going overlooked. For that role, Bogdanovic is pulling 12%. I mean, shit, even between Bogdanovic and Bey, like why is Bogdanovic 3-4 times as popular as Bey?
I got 11% of Bay, so I'm on Team Bay with you, man. I'm here. By the way, for Murray, we have him at 44.1 in 35.5 minutes. That's
high.
A little high.
Yeah, probably
1.24 fantasy points per minute. That's not.
That's why I'm getting so much now. It's why our optimal percentage is as high as it is.
Yeah, that's a little lofty. Still a good play. Yeah, like his normal rates are like 1.1 to 1.15. Still a good play at that number, but I think you just end up having a lot of Atlanta scattered. Like you're not getting 3 Atlanta dudes in a lineup all that frequently, but you're getting 1 pretty much all the time.
Yeah. John P's answer for why Kyle Anderson gets the ownership is because he gets assists. I'm referring to fantasy sites where you just get fantasy points. Yeah. It doesn't really matter how you get them, but if you're in an assist only league, I would play Kyle Anderson over Sadiq Bey.
So would I. We don't have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the Oklahoma City Thunder today. We also don't really have much ownership coming in. I guess we're doing this again with the Jalen Williams projection, slightly under projected for us. He's 3% owned. I think he's once again one of the better plays that you can get to at 6,700. Highest owned guy for OKC is 9% for Dort. Doesn't seem like a lot of people are going to get to Oklahoma City on the DraftKings side. However, 44% ownership coming into a 42% Case and Wallace on FanDuel, and another 25 to a $7,700 Giddy. I'm getting here. I got 12% of Wallace at 3%, 17 of Jalen Williams at 3%, 10 of Giddy, 12 of Dort. I like a lot more for the Thunder here than it appears the ownership does.
Yeah, we did also just get Markelle Fultz out for Orlando.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, earlier than I expected, but
I
like that Jalen Williams is only getting 3% ownership on DraftKings. Makes him pretty appealing in tournaments.
I'm sure you're not getting to him.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm not either. But
0.76 per minute right now.
Yeah, that'll look different for me later on in the day, I think. But yeah, I mean, I like getting to him at that price tag when I can. Chet certainly looks good if you can get there. SGA being out still just, opens up a lot. And we talked about it the other day. Williams was relatively disappointing, but the opportunities are there for him. Increased opportunities for Giddy, increased opportunities for Holmgren. All of these guys look like, at the very least, appealing contrarian plays, given that they're not getting any ownership on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Same goes for Dort at 5,600. Like, we mentioned Dylan Brooks earlier, who I think is a good play at 5,200. I don't think he's 4 times better than Lou Dort.
No, I'm with you there. What did Jalen Williams end up finishing with that game?
30 something.
32 and 38 minutes. Yeah.
Giddy's the guy I'm getting to the most of right now, but again, that's just going to look very different for me as we get closer to lock.
I can't wait. I hope the Jalen Williams ownership comes up because that'll allow me to get to more of him, and I'll be very happy about that.
Yeah, and like right now we have Giddy, and speaking to why like I'm confident my OKC stuff will look different later. Right now we have Giddy at 44 DraftKings points. We have Jalen Williams at 25. Like that's just not a gap that's going to hold because it's not remotely close to how it should be.
No, I got Giddy at 41.5. I got Jalen Williams at 37.5. Which might be a little lofty, but it doesn't matter. What do we do with Case and Wallace? Because 5,200 is a real price tag on DraftKings that makes it a little bit difficult, but 4,200 on FanDuel is probably too cheap.
Yeah, considering he played 36 minutes last game. The one thing to keep in mind is that it is OKC. They can change their rotations with guys like Case and Wallace from game to game, but it is really nice to see that he got actual starters minutes there. You're not expecting him to play a huge role when you're playing with Holmgren and Giddy and Williams, but the minutes are nice. At 5,200, at the very least, it's the last guy in on DraftKings, but that price on FanDuel looks excellent, assuming he's still starting.
Yeah. I like the OKC side of this game tonight. I'm excited. Add Chet to the list of power forward center options around that price tag that nobody's getting to. And he went out and had a really nice game like we said he would.
Yep.
That was kind of a bummer. I really wanted that to be something that I could have got to. 45.5 fantasy points on DraftKings in 32 minutes Friday night for Chet. It's nice. It's nice.
Have we really been doing the show for an hour and a half?
No, we started a little bit later. So like an hour 15. You ready to close it out?
Yeah.
New Orleans Pelicans are 6.5-point dogs in Denver, 223 total. This is a weird one because the last time that you and I talked about the Pels on either Thursday or Friday, whatever day that was. There was no Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson, but we did have CJ McCollum. Now we do have Zion Williamson and we do have Brandon Ingram, but CJ McCollum has a collapsed lung. 14% ownership coming into Brandon Ingram, 5 to Dyson Daniels, 21 to Zion on FanDuel, not at all the DraftKings. I like Brandon Ingram quite a bit for 8K, shooting guard, small forward, especially with no CJ around, but I don't have as much as I thought I was going to get here from the Pels.
Yeah, I like Ingram a lot. Interested to see what I end up getting to, but shooting guard, small forward, 8K with no McCollum is pretty interesting because you know that Ingram can take on a bigger playmaking role. It's not just a usage thing with McCollum being out. The ball should just be in Ingram's hands a lot more. So I really like him as a 8K shooting guard, small forward. Think he looks really good. Zion 8,800, just another one of those power forwards that's pretty difficult to get to. Joe Val has 6,700. Saw his price tag come up after the game that Zion missed. Last game, you got 20 and a half minutes from Joe Val, so you're kind of back to what you had been getting before, where Nance is playing minutes, but then you're also getting some minutes with Zion at the 5. The lineup down the stretch of that game was Herb Jones, McCollum, Williamson, Ingram, and Jordan Hawkins / Dyson Daniels. So, at that price tag for Joe Val, it's tough to really trust him. Like maybe they want him out there a little bit more without McCollum for offensive reasons, but I'm not nearly as confident in his increased playing time, without McCollum as I was when Zion sat.
Yeah, same. Yeah, there's not much here, but I'd be happy to get to whatever amount of Brandon Ingram I could get to with no CJ around.
Do you think Hawkins starts?
That would be Ingram, Zion, Joe Val, Jones. I mean, I can see it
would be point Ingram.
I could see it being Kira Lewis, and then he just doesn't have the fourth quarter closing rotation too. Yeah. I'd be surprised if it's Hawkins. I mean, even if he does, I don't think he's going to look that great.
Yeah, I don't think he'll look that great. I was just kind of trying to think about, is there anybody that, well, I was trying to think about, like, who would it be? And then is there anybody that ends up, looking really good?
Daniels will look better if it's him.
Yeah.
If Kira Lewis starts, I don't think it really matters.
Yeah. Like, I don't ultimately think it matters that much at all. Like, because I assume Ingram's running point. And
yeah,
so then you're just going to get the other guys mixed and matched throughout the game.
It's probably Daniels, and I don't think that's really going to change too much, but he'll look solid enough at 4,400.
Lewis was the direct backup to McCollum last game.
Yeah.
Sort of. Yeah. He subbed in for him in the first quarter ahead of Daniels. Daniels played in the second quarter. Like what for the few minutes McCollum wasn't out there in the second quarter, it was Ingram, Zion, Daniels, Ryan, and Nance, which kind of just goes back to, I don't think it really matters who starts. I think you're just going to get interchangeable rotations because they can run Ingram at point.
And we close it out with the reigning defending NBA champion Denver Nuggets, who do have a bit of a different look today because Jamal Murray is out. 14% ownership coming into an 11-6 Jokic. Oddly enough, 5% ownership coming into Reggie Jackson because DraftKings already got out in front of this one and priced him up to 5,500. He's 4,200 on FanDuel and 53% owned. So that one's slightly different. But yeah, like if you're going anywhere, if you want to pick a Nuggets starter, I'm never mad at it. They just never are going to look fantastic. I don't mind Jokic either, but I think I prefer Embiid.
Yeah, I think it's pretty close to me between Jokic and Embiid. You do expect more production from Jokic now with no Jamal Murray. He is a little bit more expensive than Embiid. We have Jokic by like 3 points, which I don't really have much of an issue with. Again, he is a little bit more expensive. Since the start of last season, just trying to pull his numbers up without Jamal Murray on the floor, which might take a minute. I don't know how fast it'll
While you do that, SGA now questionable.
Okay, so SGA is playing.
Yep.
That generally, whenever SGA goes from out to questionable, it usually just means that the team ruled him out and he went to the team and was like, hey, I'm playing today. And they're like, okay, you can play.
Yep. Nothing to add there. Yeah, I totally agree. You're looking for the Jokic rates without Murray?
Yeah. Jokic without Murray on the floor since the start of last season, 1.71 DraftKings points per minute. So basically what Embiid is just doing this year already.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, like, look, I like Jokic quite a bit. I just think I prefer a matchup against Washington for Joel Embiid.
29% usage, 42% assist percentage for Jokic without Murray.
Yeah.
Like,
now, don't get me wrong. He can be nuts. He can go out there and do whatever he wants. I love this dude.
Yeah. Like, I think Jokic does project better than Embiid. So, like, all things, if I can fit them, I would rather play Jokic than Embiid at similar ownership. But that $400 certainly is going to matter in some lineups. And then ownership may or may not actually end up being close to equal.
Yeah. Don't feel bad if you have either one of them. That's for sure.
Not at all.
I got nothing else. Do you have anything else you want to say for the Nugs?
No.
What do you got coming out? Articles, videos? Let the people know.
Article on the pay-up options will be out in the near future. Lineup generator video will be out probably like 2:30ish.
There it is, everybody. 4:45 Eastern time. You'll get myself and Adam back for the deeper dive. Contenders videos and my prize picks are coming out in the next hour or so. Keep your eyes peeled for that. But good luck, everybody. We will see you guys later tonight. Shout out Bet365 for being the sponsor. Talk to you later. Peace.